want to educate the American people across the country. So you make a decision next year when you get to the voting booth that it's just not about illegal immigration anymore. It's about trafficking. It's about drugs. It's about terrorism. We need to educate American people. Right now, what we're seeing is the biggest national security failure I've seen since 9/11.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sara Carter Show. This is part two with Tom Homan, the former Immigration and Customs Enforcement Acting ICE Director. Tom Homan, and my good friend who is doing everything possible, along with others like Derek Maltz and Victor Avila and Jason Jones, to help spread the word about the dangers of an unprotected border for our sovereign nation and for our family and our children. So I said part trois, un, deux, or I think I said my French is horrible. As you can see what's happening in France, right? It's overwhelming. The French government cannot control what is going on there. The rioting in the streets. You have an unsustainable system, an overflow of migration. We're seeing that in Brussels as well and across Europe. Guys, it's happening here in the United States. We're feeling that tension. And by the way, not only are we seeing issues here in the US that deal with like an overburdened system, but we see a humanitarian crisis that is literally putting children's lives at risk. It's horrific. It's horrible. It is horrible, and it must be stopped. And on this episode here, part two, we've got Tom Homan, and he and I are going to be discussing why border security must be a key issue and why it is a key issue in the 2024 race. He is going to tell you who he wants for the presidency of the United States and who he'd be willing to come back to work for. And of course, Border 911 nonprofit group that he has started. I am a part of it to get the word out to the American people about what really is happening in our nation. Gold and silver first, though, before we get to Tom. Gold and silver allow you to protect what you've worked so hard for, and they give you back the control and privacy that you need. And because reputation is important to me, the only company that I recommend is Allegiance Gold. I love Allegiance Gold. I love what they do. I love the fact that they sponsored the Sara Carter Show. Thank you so much for everything that you do and making it possible for me to get these great shows out to the American people. And right now they want to pay you back. They want to repay all the Sara Carter followers and listeners by giving you $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you. So my friends at Allegiance Gold can help you protect your IRA or your 401k with actual physical gold and silver that can be delivered securely right to your front door. And what do I say all the time? Diversify, diversify, diversify. In this day and age, that is what you have to do to protect your assets, to protect your money, and to protect your family. And Allegiance Gold, by the way, has the highest ratings in the industry. They have 5 stars with TrustLink. They're AAA rated with the Business Consumer Alliance, and they have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. So right now, get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you. Don't just trust me. Get out there, do your own research. Don't wait. Call or click today, 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA, S-A-R-A, or go to protectwithsara.com. We can't control the Biden administration, folks. Don't even try, but we can prepare. 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA, no H, S-A-R-A, or go to protectwithsara.com. Tom, you and I talked about this. We talked about this while we were in Israel, and I'm gonna go into Israel a little bit because I'm gonna lighten up the show later on with some of the funniest things I remember from Israel, and it was just great. It was a real bonding experience with Tom over there.
Let me be clear on Israel to your listeners. If you want to buy something and you got to buy, then hire Sara Carter, because I wanted to buy my wife a gift in Israel, and of course you're always trying to barter. I got Sara Carter there, and I got this item for like 30% of the original price quoted. She got bulldog When you want a deal, take Sarah with you. Watch. Sarah, when I buy my next car, will you come to
Yes,
Virginia and
I
help me
will
buy the
haggle.
car?
I am like an expert haggler. People don't realize this, but since I was a kid, when I lived in Saudi Arabia, I had to learn how to haggle. It's the way of the Middle East, right? So even when I was 6 years old, I'd haggle over a falafel. Swear to you. I was like, I
Next,
only have one real, and I would make this face.
next, car. Next time I buy a car, you're gonna come and help me. Because man, I never saw anybody. I literally, folks, I got this item for 30% of the original quote after about maybe 20 minutes of Sarah arguing and
I
bargaining. So
remember how
thank you,
many
Sarah.
times did we walk away from that guy? We walked away,
Three
yeah,
or four.
3 or 4 times. We walked away and said, "I'm not doing it. This is too much." So we were haggling. That was a good moment. That was a really good moment. But one of the things I wanted to ask you before we jump there, and it's so frustrating to me too. It's like I feel as though the non-governmental organizations, the NGOs, right? USAID, all of these, you know, organizations that we should feel proud of, that we think are doing the right thing, are really part of the problem, in my opinion. They're incentivizing this movement along with the Democrats. I feel like they almost work hand in hand. Every time I see a big flood of people coming over, and you know what? I'm a Catholic. Catholic charities and all of that, but I see what's happening. Um, are you seeing that same kind of issue? I mean, the millions and billions of dollars with the NGOs, like instead of just getting people to come here, maybe it's better to teach people how to make a better life for themselves at home.
Yeah, the NGOs, since Biden's been in the White House, the NGOs have made billions with a B on sole source government contracts. And here's why I say they're complicit in what's going on. Because the Homeland Security Life Cycle Report, which is data that's put out every year by the Homeland Security, for the last 10 years, it says this. And I always talk about this. I already said 9 out of 10 people who claim asylum at the border never get relief from the U.S. courts in the end because they simply don't qualify or they don't show up. So what happens at 9 out of 10? If you go to Homeland Security Life Cycle Report, it says this. If you're in an ICE detention facility and you get an order removal, you're removed 99.7% of the time. However, if you're not in detention, if you're not in ICE detention, you leave 6% of the time. The administration knows that. That's why they're releasing people. That's why ICE beds sit empty, already paid for at taxpayer expense at about $117 a night. And they're putting it in care of the NGOs who are spending $300 to $500 a night putting in hotel rooms. Why are they doing that? Because they don't want them detained by the government, because they know 90% will lose their case. And they know if they're not in ICE detention, they're not leaving. They're not going anywhere. So the NGOs are making billions of dollars transporting these people, taking care of these people, knowing that 9 out of 10 will fail and never leave. The NGOs are making billions of dollars. And the thing that irritates me the most, I talked to Mark Green, who's the chairman of the Homeland Oversight Committee, to have hearings on this. Many of these, there's just several NGOs are making billions of dollars on a sole source contract. The government's not even competing these contracts. They're hiring the same companies over and over again at billions of dollars to do this. And as a taxpayer, I'm insulted. If you're going to do this, you ought to open it up so everybody can bid on it and give you the cheapest price for the taxpayers. But they're not doing that. So that's why you're paying $374 a night in a hotel room for an illegal alien. So the NGOs, I think they're complicit. We know that Catholic Social Services, I've talked to people down in Rio Grande Valley, the Catholic Social Services were turning U.S. citizens away that went to the facility for help because they're too busy collecting money, taking care of the illegal aliens from the U.S. government. The government's paying these NGOs, and the government said, CBP said the other day that, well, we don't pay for their flights, we don't pay for the care. No, strictly, CBP doesn't pay them hand to hand, but the money comes through FEMA. The FEMA is issued to them through grants. So the U.S. government, in fact, pays for the transportation, pays for their care and feeding, pays for their lodging. Taxpayers do. They pay for their plane tickets to go to wherever they want to go after process. If they want to go to Chicago, that's where we're flying at taxpayer expense. So the NGOs are making a mint. The NGOs are complicit with this administration and working hand in hand with them to make sure the borders remain open and make sure that ICE detention beds remain empty so they can make 3 times as much keeping them in the hotel room.
I completely agree with you on this. And Catholic Charities had revenues in 2010 of $4.7 billion, $2.9 billion of which came from the US government. And think about that. That was in 2010. So it makes you wonder, like, how much more money, and this is just one NGO, they're getting. And not only that, Tom, and before I move, because gosh, there's so much I want to talk to you about. And I know there's so much we're going to be doing. I think one of the things off the top of my head that I'd really like to do with our Border 911, and I know you talked about it, was, having grassroots meetings, going into communities and talking to the American people, right, about how border is affecting your community, bringing the truth to them, bringing the facts to them. Even if you're in Dayton, Ohio, how many kids have lost their lives to fentanyl or adults by taking counterfeit pills in Dayton, Ohio alone, or Franklin County, Ohio, or Baltimore, Maryland, or Kensington, Pennsylvania, right? I mean, that's one of the issues. And also calling out the district attorneys who aren't even charging illegal alien criminals because they're not making any money off them. So they're just releasing them. They're not even turning them over to ICE. They're just charging them with lesser crimes and letting them go into the streets.
In the sanctuary cities, you got district attorneys are working with the courts. Even if you're a resident alien, let's say you got a green card, you've been here illegally, but you commit certain serious offense, you're eligible for deportation. In the sanctuary cities, most of these district attorneys won't charge them with that offense. They'll charge them with a lesser offense. Not because they didn't commit the offense originally, is because they charge them with a lesser offense, ICE can't remove them. They don't reach that threshold, they can be removed. Which a U.S. citizen wouldn't get that kind of break. Right. But illegal. Well, look.
We would never get that kind of break. Okay, last political question before I end it with a really fun upside of Victor Avila and beef tongue. We'll talk about that in a minute. But looking at the candidates on the 2024, coming up 2024, I know you and I have discussed this. Are you impressed with any of their border policies? I know I know who I'm impressed with, but
look,
what
I say, I'm a Trump guy. He doesn't talk the talk, he walk the walk. We had the most secure border in my lifetime. I started in 1984. The most secure border of my lifetime was done by President Trump. Bottom line is Desantis, he's talking a tough game, but everything he's talking about is Trump plan. Again, Trump built 465 miles of wall. Desantis hasn't built 2 inches. And they all talk, even Nikki Haley, but you listen to what they say when they can border trips, they're just repeating the Trump's plans that he actually implemented. The thing that insulted me the most is, and DeSantis has done a great job in Florida. I think he's a good governor. I got no problems with him, other than when he says Trump could have done more. What Trump did was unprecedented. And I find it insulting that anybody who's never stepped in those shoes can say he should have done more. It was unprecedented what he did. Illegal immigration down 83%, a 45-year low, 465 miles of border wall at billions of dollars. What he did, I worked for 6 presidents starting around Reagan. No one even came close to what Trump did. So could he have done more? He could have done more with the help of Congress. So let's remember the first few years of the Trump administration, Congress wouldn't help him a bit. Right. And they said he couldn't build more wall because he's under lawsuit from the EPA, he's under lawsuit from some tribes, under lawsuit from landowners. It took a while, but he never took his foot off the gas. He did it, and he did it well. So you can talk the talk, but until you walk the walk, I think you have very little to say. So I like all their positions on the Republican candidacy on immigration, but they're copying the success plan of Donald Trump. If you're going to talk to him about his plans, at least give the man credit.
You know what? I couldn't agree with you more. And I started covering the border under the Bush administration.
It's like verbal plagiarism. If you want to talk about these policies, then give the man credit. At least give the man credit who implemented these policies, who created them and implemented them. And I helped him do that. So I take it as an insult if someone wants to talk about our policy as their own when they're really not.
That's absolutely right. And I can say that even covering the border from the time of the Bush administration, when I remember specifically the Republicans failing on multiple fronts to protect the border. It was lawmakers that had to go out there and say, hey, whoa, time out, Bush, because the border's still not secure. We're not going to pass immigration reform. We're not going to give blanket asylum. We're not going to do it until you secure the border. And it seems like the only time that border was secured was under you and President Trump. I do not recall and do not remember a time other than that where there was an administration that was focused on fixing that problem. Folks, Sound of Freedom came out yesterday. It was an amazing film. I hope you saw it. If you didn't, I need you to get down. I need you to buy tickets at angel.com/freedom. That's angel.com/freedom to see if there's tickets available. This is a movie about how one man can make a difference in fighting human trafficking and the trafficking of children. And all of you can do that. All of you can make a difference. Every year, 2 million children are trafficked around the world. Now, this movie is aimed at exposing what is really going on and raising the awareness of this often unseen horror. This is Sound of Freedom by Angel Studio, the same group that produced The Chosen, which is a phenomenal TV series on the life of Christ. Purchase your tickets online now, new in theaters. And it's, by the way, new theaters are added daily. So check the website for current information. If it's not in your city now, it will be tomorrow at angel.com/freedom. Help spread this message worldwide, folks. Sound of Freedom is in theaters now. Get your tickets today to help raise awareness of this issue that often goes unnoticed, tragically unnoticed. Find a theater near you by visiting angel.com/freedom. By supporting Sound of Freedom, you will contribute in raising awareness and propelling a movement to save millions of children around the world. Get your tickets today at angel.com/freedom. That's angel.com/freedom. Hey, y'all, if you're not subscribed to my show here on YouTube and Rumble, what's going on? Please do. I don't want you to miss out on the great interviews with patriots like Tom Homan and my own stories from reporting on issues that you care about. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you next time. And I want to talk really quick. We're gonna have fun with Victor Avila because he's just the greatest guy and he's so much fun. And he was with us in Israel. And by the way, I did I did eat that beef tongue. Victor's like, we talk about it because it's like a big dish in Mexico. They lengua but you were like, no, I am not. I couldn't eat the tongue there because it was like the whole tongue in the stew, right? It was the whole tongue in the stew. It was like a big tongue floating around in stew.
First of all, the right thing to do is label what you're eating, right? So when I asked what dish, they say beef. So I took some, and I love beef. But the first bite, I said, this is awful spongy and weird texture to it. So I found it was beef. So look, I've said it before, I don't eat anything that's been in somebody else's mouth. So the tongue is one of those. But no, I'm not a fan of beef tongue either. I'm a fan of all brains. I'm not a fan of the other things that the Latin culture
or Israeli culture. Come on, don't just mess with us Latinos. We're gonna. Well, you know what? I want to give Victor. Let's remind everybody what happened with Victor. Victor did eat the beef tongue.
No, but back when I first came to the border patrol, I was born upstate New York. I was farm country, right? So I joined the border patrol. We had a lot of Latino agents, great friends of mine. And I think the first barbecue, they're making tripe or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
They're eating like organs and stuff that once you got a cow, you usually throw it away, and they're eating the stuff, and they love it.
It's like Scottish haggis, right? Like that's so weird. Like haggis, like it's.
You got mundo, you got tripe, you got brains, you got tongue. Give me the ribeye. I'll be good with the ribeye.
Yeah, well, you know what? I was all about that hamburger once we got to that restaurant in Israel at the mall, and those hamburgers were great. And I was very happy that you made this, like the suggestion came up because of Tom, and we ended up at this really great hamburger joint in the mall in Jerusalem, which was good. But hey, before I let you go, Tom, let's talk a little bit about Border 911. Set the stage. Tell everybody where they can go and what they can do to help with this endeavor, which I think is one of the things I'm most proud of now. I'm so excited to be working with you on this.
Border 911 is just starting. The website is being built now. If you actually go to border911.com, you'll see a holder page that asks you to put your name and email in there. So we'll keep you apprised as this thing gets stood up. But we're moving fast. I mean, we had to market the name. We had to trademark the name. We had to work with some attorneys to own the whole hemisphere anything that's border911.com, .org, .net. I contracted with a team last week. They're building the website, but it doesn't mean we're going to wait for the website to be done before we start going across the country raising hell. So me, Sara, and the other guys I mentioned, we're going to travel across the country at big events. We're going to talk about the border, the truth about the border. Like right now, the border numbers aren't down. They're playing a shell game. They're moving for a port of entry. People need to know today more than 10,000 illegal aliens are crossing the border today. You won't hear that in any other networks but the network that me and Sara work for. But we're going to talk the truth about American people and how that border affects them, whether it's fentanyl, whether it's trafficking of women and children, whether it's terrorism, whether it's criminals. But we want to educate the American people across the country. So you make a decision next year when you get to the voting booth that it's just not about illegal immigration anymore. It's about trafficking. It's about drugs. It's about terrorism. We need to educate American people. Right now, what we're seeing is the biggest national security failure I've seen since 9/11. And when we're done talking to you, you should feel the same way. And I say this a lot of times, when we get done talking to you, you're probably going to be as pissed off as I am every day because you're going to realize what this administration has done. That's going to affect you and your children and grandchildren. So looking forward to working with you, Sara, going across the country and talking about what we know. Not what we think, but what we know. I both spent years down there on the border in the midst of it, and we can tell the American people our stories.
Absolutely. And it's going to be up to us, each and every one of us, as parents, as members of our community, as members of this great nation, to fight for our children and to fight for our nation's future. Because if we don't do it, nobody else will. No one's going to fight for your family the way you are. And if you don't believe that there are adversaries at war with our children, then we are going to educate you and we are going to get you to see the light, because we're going to prove, right, Tom, that we have adversaries out there targeting our nation, targeting our children, and frankly, we have an administration that's doing the same thing. Thank you so much, Tom, for being a part of the show today. Folks, that's Tom Homan. Let's pray to God that we get him back in the administration where he can protect each and every one of us and our families. He is doing God's work, believe me, and I'm right alongside him to get the word out, and with all of our friends like Victor Avila, Derek Maltz, Jason Jones, and others. So we need to keep on this. We need to keep fighting the good fight. We need to do it for our children. Our laws matter. Our people matter. We deserve to know who is coming to our country, who is living amongst us. We have a right to know that. We have a right to protect our children. Let's put America first. I'm so excited to share these great interviews with you and can't wait to share even more stories with you tomorrow and in the weeks to come. Remember to follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on Twitter at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our great nation, and God bless the great state of Texas.